Yes, I'm back, people. Sorry I've taken so long to make a new story, but I've been moving. I've had to deal with some family issues. I also had to deal with some internet issues. But I am back, and I am back with a banger this time. I'm back with one of my favorite reporters from the the Manila Times, Rigoberto Tiglao, who says the media must purge itself of red reporters. If anybody's watched any of my past videos, they would know that there's nobody on planet Earth more Chinese than Mr. Tiglao. And I think this is one of the funniest articles that he's ever written in his life. So, let's get into some of the BS that he wrote. Once in a while, a news event reveals as a bolt of lightning illuminates a dark landscape. He must have read that from a 7th grade book. The political stance of media men. Why does it have to be men? Maybe even organizational memberships, which, by the way, his membership, the Manila Times, the owner, works for Mr. Duterte, has a Chinese ambassador, pretty much. His whole paper is dedicated to China. We're going to get into that. So basically, he's writing this whole story about himself. Take the news last week, released of I can't read that name. Itis, convicted in 1991 together with an accomplice by a branch of 88 Regional Trial Court for the 1989 killing of U.S. Army Colonel James Rowe. The Communist Party at the time admitted responsibility for it, claiming he was embellic of the U.S. imperial presence in the country. The Supreme Court upheld the trial's decision in August 2000. How did the media outlets report this event? By the way, 22 years later. The longest held political prisoner. That's basically what he was saying. They're all saying that they did this article and they're saying that he was a political prisoner. Of course, the Philippine Daily Inquirer, with editors known in the industry to have been activists, takes a red cake as give them news emotional spin. By the way, this is coming from a person, Mr. Tiglao, who said you Filipinos are too stupid to make decisions for yourself politically. He's also the one that argued against the ICC court ruling in the West Filipino Sea, saying that they should just give the islands to China because we're not using them anyway. This is the same guy who said China is better than a democracy or America. Which one would you pick? Referring to you should just pick China. This is coming from a guy who's wrote more pro-Chinese newspapers than China writes itself. So let's scroll down, shall we? In contrast, the Manila Bulletin, either with the better editors or nonpartisan reporters, reported objectively the trial court orders released the MPA member convicted for the death of U.S. Army Corps Colonel Rowe. Strangely, there was no report in his newspaper about the release of the assassin. Most of the Philippine media reported the Philippines as a political prisoner for 39 years. What would the world think of a dictatorship that could put a political dissenter in prison for that long? I hate U.S. imperialists, but Rowe was murdered not in a casualty of war. See, he's already saying he hates American imperialists. It's not American democracy. It's not American anything. He does not write any pro-democracy paper at all. Now he's starting to tell on himself because he can't hold it back. I think basically he's mad that the other papers beat him to it, and I think that's what this is all about. Indeed, the reporters from mainstream media have so alarmed the National Task Force to end a local communist armed conflict that is issued throughout the spokesman, Defense Secretary. Only GMA News correctly its misinformation. The others ignored the task force clarification. How can these mainstream medias all report the same garbage using the key term political prisoner? Only the Communist Party of the Philippines and its fronts have called it a political prisoner since it insists that the CPP, with the MPA, has the moral right and the political stance to undertake a violent projectile democracy system. You don't care about democracy. You just basically called it an imperialistic system. You've never cared about democracy. You don't care about democracy at all. You never made. Matter of fact, if you click on Mr. Tiglao's Facebook page, he's literally selling a book why China is better than America. He's literally selling a book why democracy is bad. So, the regular courts for some crime was such a murder, legal possession of firearms. Any MPA killed in a battle was savage. The CPP propaganda network reported, which really explains why there was 2,326 killed or disappeared, right? The reporters in these media outlets were simply echoing the party line. So basically, he's trying to say in all this that that MPA was bad, blah, 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 but he's never really wrote any article saying the MPA was bad. He's never wrote any article against the Communist Party. His argument in it, these other newspapers are writing it. But I want you to take a look at what Manila Times just wrote, I think today, right? Every other article that Manila Times wrote today is China. China SME seeks vitality amid COVID. China marks 30 years of diplomatic ties. China fulfills Green Initiative. These are just today's articles. This is just today's articles from the Manila Times, who's supposed to be reporting. Now, Manila is writing an awful lot of Chinese articles. China, the new China European train starts rolling. China region eyes 7% growth for 2022. Oh man, it gets really bad. There's nobody on planet Earth more Chinese than Mr. Tiglao. Not only does he hate democracy, but to even write something like this. But I was just curious, so I clicked on the comments from earlier, right? Well said, Mr. The media is a pulpit of information, disinformation. So Mr. Rin Cruz apparently never read any of the previous articles that he wrote. Apparently, he might have read an article but didn't realize that Mr. Tiglao wrote that article. They could rip to Mr. Tiglao for telling the truth and TMT for being fair media. They are never a fair media, JR. Purge also the media outlets for spread false information. Rappler, Daily, Philippines, all the bleed yellow. Can we name these traitors? Oh, yes, I can name a traitor for you, Naily. It is Mr. Tiglao. You see, Mr. Tiglao hates democracy. He's made an argument that China should have the islands. He's called every one of you stupid. That's why he's writing this, because he hopes that by writing this, some of you actually believe what he's saying. Based on his past articles, if you look at my previous videos, there is no hell and way you cannot say that he is not a red reporter. He is purely a red reporter. Mr. Robert Tiglao is a joke of a reporter. And I'm sorry, he's a sad little man. And you guys got to stop believing when he writes that garbage. Matter of fact, this is the first time he's even wrote this kind of garbage in this kind of direction, trying to fool everybody. But he doesn't fool me. Mr. Robert Tiglao is a red reporter. He's the king of red reporters. He is at home. If you were to raid his home right now, you'd probably see a Chinese flag hanging in his living room. Anyway, thank you for watching Joe's Corner. We need to start calling him out a little bit more. And you as a Filipino need to start paying attention when they write stuff like this so we can call him out, let him know this is not cool. This is the Manila Times. You should be writing stories about Manila, not all these Chinese articles. Thank you for watching.